और सभी श्रोतागणों से मैं पहले स्लाइड शेयर कर लेता हूं और उसके बाद
जी।
आ गई है सब स्लाइड्स आ गई हैं। अनफॉर्चुनेटली फुल व्यू आते ही गड़बड़ हो जाती है, तो मैं इसी व्यू में चलूंगा। ठीक है सर।
ओके, थोड़ा बड़ा हो सकता है तो इट विल बी फाइन।
नहीं, मैं कर तो दूंगा, पर वो क्या जैसे ही शिफ्ट करते हैं तो वो शिफ्ट नहीं होती है। ये मुझे पता नहीं
ओके,
क्यों
नो
नहीं है
प्रॉब्लम।
सर।
ओके ओके।
तो first, good evening to everyone. Most of us are familiar with the concept of karma. It is both the action and the consequence, where one leads to another in a continuous action, a continuous process or a loop-like action. Jainism and many other religions have given a convincing framework of our karma. We are well known in the Jainism. Gita has also given us a good account of the karma, their origin, storage, and effects, which restricts a person from doing or accumulating bad karmas. In spite of such knowledge given by the seers, their effect on a person is short lived, and we are continuously falling into the trap of the bad karmas. My today's deliberation is influenced by the late Munishri Mahendra Kumarji, who has inspired me to look the religious philosophy from scientific angle. In this book, here is an example to support this approach. Just a minute. Sorry. Doctrine of the karma, as has been labeled in most of the literatures in the Jainism, has got many facets. They are neuropsychological basis, philosophical basis, and a spiritual basis. The main reasons for the religion to implement doctrine of the karma in our daily life are lack of scientific evidences to support this doctrine. In fact, the scientific language, it will be incorrect to call it as a doctrine, because doctrine is the one which is universal, but it has to be accepted as a universal, where the lack of scientific evidences doesn't allow us to do so. To overcome this failure, religion has introduced concept of fear or punishment associated with the so-called bad karma and myth of hell and heaven to enforce good karmas. What is needed in current context or the current generation is strong scientific evidences and explain it in a common language that can be assimilated by the masses. And second, and still a bigger reason, is the rush or the pleasure associated with the bad karmas. Can we obviate that one or can we reduce that one? Mix up of the religion with the mix up of the religion or the natural principles with social order is another place where we are not confident in propagating the karmas. There are many facets of the karma, such as relevant to past birth, karmas and the results of the karma in our present life, and what will happen in the future or how it will transmit it to the next birth. There are many one, but for today's, I'll be limiting to the karmas in present state and the environment, how they are generated and how they can be controlled. Neuroscience, as we know, is the studies the nervous system and the brain. It is the basis of all cognitive act. That's what is believed in general. The brain is the underlying controlling factor for such decisions, for each decisions, thoughts, and actions we commit every day, whether consciously or subconsciously. The human subconscious state is responsible for almost all the karmas we accumulate. physically, verbally, and mentally, commonly known as man, vachan, or kaya, throughout our current life. If guided correctly, the human mind could play a leading decision towards the right path for ascending our life or our nature, our fate into the moksha. By investigating the way in which the brain works, neuroscientists have found a neurological basis for karmic reinforcement of behavior and actions. At its heart is the neural plasticity I'll be discussing in little detail. The ability to experience and shape the neural plasticity can change our mind and the brain. In the first portion, I'll summarize a brief account of brain and mind as relevant to the karma, and not I will be touching the full details of the karma or of the brain or the mind. As I said, Jain doctrine puts soul, mind, and the body. This trio is being referred by every one of us. What science has given to us is the interface of the brain, which is least touched in the philosophical literature. The brain, as we know, and as we have elucidated now, it has got a two-way communication with the body, which is very well known, as shown in the red color, whereas the little darker color, it has got a reciprocal relationship with the mind, which is yet to be explored. While soul cannot be quantified with the scientific gadgets, mind and brain are the areas of the intense scientific research. And body, as we know, is known to every one of us and in details to the medical sciences. This is perhaps the reason why the science and the philosophy cannot come together. Because science looks from the base, that is the external world, going through the it works into the science. Science works from the external or the base, from where it goes into the deeper side to the body, brain, mind, and then to the soul, whether it's the individual or the universal. Thus, it explores the things as it is existing. In contrast, philosophy has dealt the same situation in the other way. It has gone describing the soul, or particularly the individual soul, in a great detail, which cannot be quantified, but which is there. And perhaps that description is quite correct, but it cannot be believed by most of us. From there, it has come to the mind, brain, body, and perhaps the sensations and the body and the brain have been described little in the philosophical literature. Thus, we have to devise a mean where both can meet and enrich the masses in general. What we have understood that in last 50 years, there is a intense research with the newer gadgets and the newer philosophies that we have started understanding the mind and the brain in great detail. What perhaps is they work in the unison. In fact, the sensations are not different from the soul. They are part of the one process, and they go and expanding as the evolution takes place. What another important point is that we are understanding the nervous system in a serial or in a plain line diagram, where it is not so. It is as you see in the top, where the mind and brain, they are in the multiple crisscross. They are unknown. They are not known. How many intense cross connections are there within the mind and the brain? So that's why we often fail to explain the many situations. I'm sorry. We further go into the major scientific achievement is the observation that body, mind, brain, and soul are part of a one continuum. That's what I said in the last slide. But our karmas are sophisticated. They are personalized event. They are not borrowed from others. That is our own. They can be described as a tendency of the mind. Present actions which we do today is conditioned by the all previous moments which were there in our experiences or in the mind earlier. And each action which is done today will leave a trace for our subsequent actions. So the karma is an action or behavior, or it is a result. It sometimes we can say it is an endocrinal outcome within the body, the secretions of the juices and so. So it can be simply said, the karma is linked to the intentions and the actions. And what we call it experience is the reactive habits which are there again and again. What particular things which we know that the karma is not an individual event, it is influenced by many things, by our own self, environmental factors, emotional, social, cultural, and cosmic. The list is in great detail. I'm not going to touch. Now I'm coming a little to the brain. We are learning that human brain is far more extraordinary than we earlier thought. It is the most complex thing in the universe, and it is perhaps the greatest gift of the nature given to the human being. Currently, it is misunderstood as we are trying to view it as a line diagram, as I said last, or it doesn't work in the compartmental work. It doesn't, portion of the brain doesn't lead to one action. It is the multiple portions which work together, then they come to the particular action or the behavior. And multiple parts of the brain are responsible for everything. Though one part of the brain is the major contributor for our particular thing, the whole brain functions in a holistic way. So to learn or to describe the brain in a single linear diagram is not correct. What we know about the brain is a small subsection of the things which are going into the brain, and majority of then it is still in the unknown, and that's why we keep on fighting in the ability of the brain or the mind to the universe or to the soul. I'll just touch 2 or 3 points related to the brain because my today's description is not onto the brain and the mind. I'm touching on the karma. You all are very familiar with the twin theory. These 3 stages of the development, they go concurrently and they go in a serially. The initial life has been mainly worried about the suraksha to avoid the hazards. That's why it is called as a reptilian brain, and which bites. It goes and it bites through the person who likely to harm him. So the reptilian brain, which is there, it is in the lower portion of the brain near medulla oblongata, pons, and part of the midbrain. Whereas subsequent to that, the human as the animal life had developed into the limbic brain. And it basically, जो हम लोग हिंदी में कहते हैं स्नेह, love, these are and here the rewards are the main outcome in this part of the brain. Whereas the human now, see the large portion in the blue color, in the brown color. It is a recent one, and it tells us how to be attached to each other. Unfortunately, we have used the reptilian brain in our daily behavior to fight against each other, whereas our main the bulk of our brain is responsible for the actions which attaches ourselves to the other one. Another point which I wish to share with you is where is the brain. Is it only in the skull, which I am describing and most of us are aware? Here it has got around 86 billions, or some people say 1 trillion neurons. And it works, or it tells, it can be simply say it is basically related to the thinking. Then there are, science has identified that the neurons are not limited to the brain only. Heart, which has got approximately 40,000 neurons. The common phrases you see uh, in the literature or in the descriptions, मेरा दिल दर्द करता है, मेरा दिल दुखा, मेरे दिल ने ये कहा. This was there, but we never thought that it has got an element which has got related to the brain and the mind. So these neurons, they were quite correct in their descriptions, that describing heart as a seat of the brain, but perhaps they were not aware of the proper brain which is there in our head. And the science is now discovering the gut. And this is a major 100 billion neurons, 100 million, I'm sorry, it is 100 million neurons, it is not billions. They are there within our gut. And they decides, that's why it has been described in the literature, my gut feeling. My gut feeling says this one. So this is perhaps related to the brain or the functions of the brain and mind. So we are not saying that the brain is only what is there in our head. It is there throughout the body. And even a big question to every one of us, does the brain or the functions of the brain are there in the single cell as well? Does the unicellular organisms, where we say there is no physical brain, has got all the functions in a miniature way? In addition, the main functions of the brain are there in the ganglions and the bunch of the neurons which are there. So, and this may not be at the physical brain that we see in many of the animals also. So the brain is not only the invention or the property of the human being or the higher animals. It is there in the unicellular organisms to the multicellular and the most complex person. This is perhaps the last slide I wish to share related to the brain. If you look into the this one diagram on the right side, if you consider or reconstruct our body as per the area of the brain which is given to them. Example, our hands have been given a large area. And another is our mouth, speech, and speech is perhaps the main thing which is related to this, and our mouth is very big. In contrast, our limbs, particularly the lower limbs, or the trunk, or the upper limbs above the hand, they are very small. What we are fighting, we are putting our muscular power, and we are losing the gift, the mental power which has been given to you. I forgot to tell you in the beginning that today is the World Mental Health Day. Another important point which we are fighting on the basic things, or we are putting our energy into look into these three sensations and the motor functions, including the endocrinal functions. They have got a very small number of neurons. That is the where, and in contrast to this, perception, what we call as darshan, or that is or interaction within the brain, has got a largest number of the neurons in the tune of, in fact, majority of the neurons are related to the perceptions, which we are doing very little. We are not exploring it. Whereas we are exploring the motor or the sensory neurons to a great extent. That is where the whole problem lies, that we as a human being should consider more. This, I feel, that our karmas should not be related only to the sensation or to the motor functions. It should be related mainly to the perceptions or the darshanic one. I look into the lowest one. 150,000 neurons are only there to control 600 muscles, and 80 to 600, 86 to 100 billion neurons, they are there for our darshan. So look into and put into and these all the functions both for the external sense or the internal sense. Plasticity. We have been taught 50 years ago or the 70 years ago that the brain cells one form are not changeable. They are fixed. They do not. But the newer understanding has given that we have got a capacity of being molded or altered as per the environment. A common experiment which was there, if we stimulate two neurons at the same time, in a few hours, they will become strongly connected. Justifying the quote, neurons that fire together work together. This is perhaps the theory of the karma can be explained in this one. This is the basic principle, ability of the brain to change through the experiences, through the actions. Over time, these networks become more dominant or hardwired, we call it in the computer language, hardwired in our brain, and it is manifest as a habit which works on the subconscious level. The research has explained that how our brain networks are physically created and updated on a micro level on a continuum basis. The negative emotions and the stress that we hold into will stunt or retard the growth of our brain, the negative emotions, impacting our ability to learn and evolve. Fortunately, the opposite is also true. Positive thoughts and habits can transfer our mind and lives for the better one. So this is where the philosophy of the karma comes, and that needs to be explained and investigated in a detail. There are many practices and tools beyond mindfulness that we can use to break free of the old patterns, create new habits, increase neuroplasticity. By leveraging scientific research, we can promote collective healing equally and justifying our existence in the world. I'll just go small into the mind. Mind is perhaps the biggest gift given by the nature to the human being. Perhaps, but I feel that it is there in all the animal kingdom, unlike what philosophical or the Jainism literature says. We are aware of the brain, of the mind, which is small one, what we call as conscious brain. It is 5 to 10% of the mind complex, which is visible to us or which is manifesting in the external world. Thus, more than 80% of our brain still needs to be explored. The preconscious or the subconscious mind, which is just adjacent to the mind complex, which is conscious one, is also the reason for our spontaneous actions. But what is there in the subconscious or the unconscious mind? In the earlier literature, scientific literature I'm calling, that we were told that these are the silent areas, which are, perhaps we were not knowing the actions, but we are now have come to the conclusion they are likely to have a major functions. It is the seat of all actions. So mind is the seat of all actions. And what we are visualizing or analyzing is the conscious mind only. We make thousands of the decisions per day, and some people have analyzed or estimated around 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day, average 30,000. 30,000 thoughts per 3,000 thoughts per hour. But these are just estimating, because no one can do right now with the current level of knowledge. Because psychologists have said that we are having around 6,000 thoughts per day. Perhaps they are measuring mainly the conscious mind and not the preconscious or the subconscious mind. Perceptions, another important point. What I perceive today is what I thinking that time. If I'm thinking that there is a danger, while entering also, I will in a dark, I'll be feeling that way. And the reverse is that if I'm feeling good at that moment, even I'm entering in the dark, I'll be having a sound and the healthy feeling at that time. So the perceptions is organized by the mind or the meaning which we impose. Thus we say we perceive the world not as it is, but as it is useful to us or it is meaningful to us. That's where the karmas are there. We do certain good or bad karmas based on our meanings, our beliefs, and our own environment. So these are the way the karma can be modified or can be modulated. Another important point which is related to the mind and the karma is what we do is the impulsive one, but can it be converted into the habit? Next slide will also tell you a little more. What we know that we are being bombarded with a large amount of informations every second, every minute, every day, and in a small fraction of second also. What our brain and mind does, it filters that information and takes only that one which is meaningful to us. Our karma, as I told you in the last slide, it manifests, it tells our intention into the action. And habit pushes us in a repeating in the future. What we have seen, that we have got a reward pathway. And we learn, as we said in the psychology, that every learning, every action depends upon the reward and the punishment. Reward circuit has been analyzed in a great detail. It is a mesolimbic circuit which connects the cortex, basal ganglia, and thalamus, and it loops back to the so it is a circle which goes from the one place to another and keep on updating itself. So the reward pathway, if you do and get a reward, you can tend to do it in the future as well. In contrast, the bad karmas, where the punishment is associated, if at all is there, then the punishment will retard the circuit to be formed in a detail. So you are losing a good circuit at the expense of the bad circuit. Science has, or the neuroscience has further found out that good karmas are associated with this not only activation of this circuit, which is we see on the fMRI, even the hormones like dopamine and serotonin also comes in a bigger role. But again, I must point out the fallacy that not a single hormone. It is the mix of all the hormones in a correct proportion. I usually give example, अगर रोटी बनानी है, तो good amount of atta and small amount of salt is also needed. But if you put too much salt, going to be bad. And put no salt, then it will be tasteless. So all the hormones, there is no hormone which is bad. All the hormones, but what we need is a correct proportion, and which should be the dominant one. A small word, how we do the stereotyped karmas and the new karmas. A new situation when it comes, what we call it new experience or the conscious perceptions, possibly that it must be going on subconscious or unconscious also in our body. That why take some food unconsciously, it must be stimulating many areas in the body. So here it puts our intention, attention, and the planning that a new experience or a conscious perception tells us. And on fMRI, we have seen that there is increased activity in the frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, prefrontal cortex, and part of the temporal. That is the where the new actions are being planned. On multiple repetition, they turn into the automatic behavior shown in the first one of this slide. And based on our multiple or the stereotype, what we call, suppose the heat is there, I put my hand like this one. This is a automatic. I need not to think over it. So it is a automatic. It is a quick action based on my all previous learnings. Whether you call it as a past year or past learning or past experiences. And fMRI has identified that the major activity related to the automatic behavior is on the back of our brain. We are born with the large number of automated behavior and keep on adding throughout our life. Question comes, can we, with the practice, can we modify it? Yes, you can. But the question which we have not been able to solve, there is a theory in the philosophy that we get birth with the previous karmas. But is there any scientific evidence to that one? I'm not able to find out. Coming to the last portion of the mind and the karmas, human mind is a wandering mind. Buddhism says it is an unhappy mind. But it is not there. Our mind is a quiet one. It's a quiet, serene, like in nature. If you go into, even it's a too much heat in the desert or a big granary in the marshy areas, they all are quite silent. They work, sometimes they get, they come into the actions, but majority of them, they are serene. And this is what science has identified, default mode network. This is the network when our thinking is undisturbed. That is the where I initially in my slide put it. These are the where these neurons are much active when our thinking is undisturbed, and default mode network is active. And the areas which are there, I'm not going to tell you in the details. These are, I have named it. But what important point science has found out, that with the meditation, default area network gets more activated, and our activity, when it reduces with the meditation, default mode network or DMN gets much activated. So we should develop our habit, mind, and indirect karmas in the way we can activate our default mode network rather than putting it into the action mode all the time. What has happened in the present period, that we are most of the time in action mode and little time in the default mode. I'm not going to touch this portion, which itself is a big lecture. The heredity, genes, and the chromosomes, are they akin to the Karman series? Because science will understand or will believe the Karman series only once it is put it in a physical shape. But we know that we inherit genes and chromosomes from our parents. Whether the soul is added into it, again, I'm not in a confident way to comment on it. But what are there, the relationship of the genes and the chromosomes to the past birth memories, and the karmas. Are we in a position to carry it for the next birth? Influencing action and behavior. This we are known is a very well that our chromosomes or the genetic workup or genetic constitution influences our action and behavior. And another important point, our action and behavior which are generated, which I'm doing today, does will behave my genetic structures. Perhaps the epigenetic is going to answer this one. So I'm not going to touch this particular portion in today's lecture. I'll just finish my lecture with the 2-3 points for your thoughts. I've not been able to solve it. We have got trillions of the friends within our own body, what I call a trillion souls, more than trillion souls. Do we share our karmas with them? It is known that while we have got 1 trillion neurons in the brain, there are 10 to 100 trillions. See the magnitude. They are there within our own body. Now, are these trillions souls which are there? Do they influence our own souls? Do they influence our own karmas? Can we modify our karmas to a good or bad by modifying these friends or the symbiotic areas which are there? And what, mind you, most of these organisms or the life which are there within our body, they are helpful to us. They are not harmful to us. With our own lifestyles, we keep on changing them to a harmful one and going for a treatment in their life later. Well, my lecture will be incomplete, or I'll also be incomplete if I don't prescribe it. Prescription and what to do. Whether if you are particularly if you are accumulating or you don't want to have the bad karmas in the life. I have divided it as our medical science has put it, preventive treatment and the curative treatment. So what I say preventive, if you have to improve the karmas in the society or in the life, you have to start early in the childhood. So early in the childhood, who can? It is the parents only who can come into the rescue. It is only the society and the neighborhood can come into our rescue. So, and there it is the examples, because they learn not through the lectures or through the books, they learn through the observations. So we have to say that by doing good karmas, you are going to live better. And so this we are not to say, we have to enjoy the life with the good karmas only. And once come to my age or the later on, only thing which we can do or reduce our karmas load, particularly the influx of the karmas, by increasing our requirement and expectations. So these are the two. There are many more things which can be done and taken into consideration for prevention and cure. Jainism has given 2 important portions, pratikraman and the meditations. Christians have given that you open up your mind in the church. Confession, they call it. So confession is the one which is there only to the self, that is not known to the society in general. So the pratikraman and the meditations and many other things are there in other religions also. You open up your mind, have repent for the actions which are not good to you or good to others, can somehow reduce our karmic load. Some more questions, which I thought, because somebody was remarking that the lecture is going to be a beautiful one or not. I said, I'm going to learn from you. And these are the portions where I thought I'll be learning from you. My one query is, what happens to the karmic particles once they are destroyed in a, suppose I said, I not only said, I destroy my bad karmas. If they are destroyed, what will happen to them? Will it go into the universe? Will it attach to any other place or any other persons? I, I need an answer. Second, perhaps where my feeling is that particularly when we have labeled a process as eternal or ultimate, particularly when I look into the Jainism literature, there are all religious literature, they say ultimate or the eternal. The soul is eternal. Universe is ultimate or the eternal. Perhaps scientific mind puts it, you kill or suppress all the queries or inquisitiveness which are there with it. So rather than putting it as a eternal or ultimate, we say, I do not know. Humbly, if I say, I do not know about the origin of the universe, perhaps that is going to be better accepted by my colleagues or by my persons who are listening to me, rather than saying it is ultimate. Another important point is mind is not only external sense, it is an internal sense also. It tells us something which is there within happening in my body, maybe on my conscious level or at a subconscious level. We often classify this as the eternal or universal, which is not correct. It needs to be explored. Though I have not used the correct word, I have seen in the many of the lectures, discussions, that Darwin's hypothesis has been denouncing or it has been rejected, whereas it is not clear. If you take it in the broader sense, and it tells us, which I said in the neural plasticity, the brain changes as per our karmas. Brain changes as per our actions. So, and it comes out in a better shape. So, if you put Darwin's as our existence or our coming out to the better one depends on our good karmas or the bad karmas. That is the where the Darwin perhaps was meaning it. It has been just gone into the one bad term, fight for the fittest, or the fit for the fittest. That is not correct one. So these are some of the questions I thought I will share with you, and I'll get answers not only today, in the other future lectures as well. To conclude my talk today, Jainism and neuroscience are connected in the practice, and we must explore it for the betterment of the world. Second, the concept of the brain is just one part of the nervous system, and the whole nervous system should be looked into a different angle rather than describing everything under these are animals or these life has got no brain. This is not there. They have got a nervous system. As I told you, even the unicellular organisms, they sense the chemical environment within their own, or the water amoeba, very well we know. Second, karma is an action and not an outcome. That is perhaps better way of explaining, because once we say outcome, we create a fear or we create a reward which may be correct or incorrect. Perhaps the Gita has given फल किया जा, कर्म किया जा, फल की चिंता मत कर. The consequences of karmas are not characteristics. And I said just now about the Gita, avoid goal-related karmas. I said in my last slide, meditation and pratikraman are fantastic too. And they are for the individual and not for the, and I use my common quote, ये सब दर्शन के विषय हैं, प्रदर्शन के विषय नहीं है. And what I am observing is that they have become more like a pradarshan. When I see this one mobile, it is flooded with the samayachna. But really anyone has done samayachna to me, or I have done everyone to that, anyone to? Perhaps not. So the philosophy of the karma should be taught by examples in childhood and early school, and later in the life, to the adults with the logic and with the science. Thank you very much. And I'm sure I'm going to get much more from you. Thank you.